making everything blue and like kind of blown out.
Yeah, the scan lines and the bloom like are really a big thing here because you get that monitor glow.
Yeah.
One of the things that you did that I fell in love with was this. Like, if you guys look at this, like, what the hell is this? It's a walkie-talkie with a superscript, right? That's what this is. And when I saw that, I was in love with it because when you look at some of the old school shit, it's like that made sense to someone somewhere, some engineer that like created an icon for this thing. And it seems extra sciencey because it's got a superscript.
Yeah.
But like I kind of love when I play games and I see an image or an icon or something like that that's distinguishable. Like every fucking time I see this, I am now going to think Trade Station.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Right.
But it's not like a logical mapping.
Right.
Right. And then Brendan did come up with a version of this where these two were arrows, and this is a trade station, and it started to make way more sense. And like normally, I think a graphic artist or someone that was into iconography would be like, that's much cleaner and clearer. But I like that level of indirection that you get with this, where you're like, it's kind of like when you looked at Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like when I first saw the X-wing, I was like, what the? Because like I was like, a spaceship is this sexy, sleek thing in the future, right? And this thing looks like the Winnebago,
all over the
and
place.
It's ugly. And then all of a sudden, as a kid, like I sat down and I realized, like, and maybe what I should do is maybe I should move this a little bit so that people can see our face because it seems weird that we're like talking and so maybe I can just like do this a little bit or something. But it was really weird.
Now we can't see what we're talking. Whatever.
Yeah, but it was really weird that, and I hope that update's live. Anyway,
We'll find out.
We'll find out. But it was really weird, and all of a sudden I thought about it. I was like, when I go on the highway, like everything isn't like you know, the latest model year car.
Right.
Right. It's like there are lots of cars from like 20 years ago that are barely running. Right.
Yeah, like my car.
Yeah. And so like when I looked at Star Wars, I was like, this is a rebellion, and they're just scrapping things together, and it doesn't have to look pretty, and this is probably old tech for them. And it was also. Unlike Star Trek was clearly like, take our line and this is the future.
Right.
And I felt like Star Wars was very much like, this is a different future.
Right.
Which just kind of blew me away. And they had different weird things. And all of those little details.
A different past and a different future.
Yeah, and so all those details kind of like got my gears grinding. So like this is a lot to talk about for just one little icon. But like that's what I kind of loved about that.
I'm glad that you like it.
Yeah. And then I also absolutely love this arc. This orbit arc, which probably in the game, we wanted to make it so that all the spaceships were drifting, and these actually made sense. But that's going to be way too much effort for our little game.
Yeah.
So this is probably going to be complete bullshit.
Yeah.
But it's just cool, because it's like that thing exists in a world, and this computer would probably give a crap about its orbit so that we could calculate a trajectory so that we could intercept it, and that's just cool. That just makes happiness happier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The scientifically literate part of my brain kind of goes a little when I see this because there's orbit lines and trajectories going all over the place. And if there is some center of mass in this solar system, then everything would be orbiting around it.
Right. Yeah.
Not in these random trajectories, but I kind of like the way it looks.
Right.
And so the artist in me is totally down with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Good enough, right?
Yeah.
And then what else we got here? Hold on. Let me go
Go back in time.
forward in time. Look at this. Drones.
Yeah. We were talking, and this kind of started because we were talking about how the current drone shape kind of tapers to a point in the back, and people tend to think that that's an arrow, and that that's actually the front.
Let me see if I can pull up a
current screenshot.
Yeah, a current screenshot of the game for people who haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I don't know if we.
There's stuff in there that you.
Oh, you know what? Here, actually, I can go to the little. I think in here you have.
Yeah,
okay.
There we go. Yeah.
So this is a little thing we made for Christmas.
Yeah.
But you can kind of see that the drone that Jill made originally. We put the headlight in the front, but it's got this point in the back, and everyone who plays it at first wants to drive this way because there's a big effing arrow that's going this way.
Yeah.
And the drone rotates, but the number doesn't rotate, which feels cool to me because it's like it's that gyroscopic kind of motion, and I like it. But yeah, so I was like, we need a couple. Not only that, but you want to give the drones personality eventually.
Yeah.
They all have names.
We have multiple drone types in the game itself.
Yeah, so we wanted to start having them feel like they had different personalities. And so I was like, hey, just come up with a bunch of different designs. And so these are a bunch of those designs.
Yep.
And eventually it would be kind of cool if the game had like a logo. Like we have the Duskers logo, which is just the name and type and stuff like that. But it would be cool if we ever made, I don't know, team T-shirts or something like that, to have some little, and iconography, maybe an icon for the game, stuff like that. To have one of these be very, I don't know, like a silhouette that's distinguishable. That you'd be like, that's Duskers.
Each person could have a different drone on their shirt.
They
that
could.
worked on the game.
They could. Then we'd have to print a bunch of shirts.
That probably.
But that would be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and so basically, also this square one, we were deciding was just kind of like this base one because it's very much like looks like a drone and it's very clear. And then
kind of a clunky 1980s look to it.
Yeah, it does, especially with this like kind of like tube in the front. That reminds me of like almost like an old school CRT with like the bent screen and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's what those are.
Yeah. Kind of riffing on those ideas now for newer ones.
Right. Yeah. And it's cool. I did like even though they start to look like puppies.
Yeah.
But these little antenna off the back, just little things that like make you think that these things actually function. Like these actually have a thing. And what we're gonna do, if anybody has seen the gameplay, what we're probably gonna do is right now, like you see how this light comes off of it. So this is an overlay. Everything that you see in neon here is an overlay that the computer is saying. It's like computer vision where it's like this is where the drone is, but the drone is actually there. So what we want to do is we want to put some geometry in there that, if another drone cast light on it, that you'd see something underneath the overlay. And then I also want to jostle the light when you're driving over things and stuff like that so that it reminds you, and this won't jostle.
Yeah.
So I think right now when people play the game, they don't know that these are overlays because, there's no juxtaposition there. There's nothing breaking your brain. But when you see this light bouncing, and you don't see this bouncing, but you might see like light reflecting off of this thing underneath that's bouncing, you're like, oh, this is a visualization. The computer is telling me this, and this is the real world. And that's what I think will hopefully get this creepy effect where when you see these things in the dark, these glowing things, you're like, yeah, that's there, but that doesn't mean I can see all the way over there. Like there might be an alien that's coming, and I can't see it because it's not in my light. And that will hopefully create this sense of what the fuck, right? Like this creepy sense, and hopefully we'll get to that. Brendan also did this, which was a cute little thing. I was like,
Tim's favorite thing ever.
It is, and it's like I was like, hey, you know what? We're gonna try to give. So we just gave the alpha. we just gave the alpha of the game out to anybody who's pre-ordered. And I thought, and I wanted to do it before the holidays, and so I was like, and you always find, things the computer vision recognizes and it flickers on, and I was like, oh, let's replace that with a little present. Wouldn't that be adorable? No. And it was, and we're totally gonna reuse that next year.
For Christmas.
Yes. Hopefully we'll be out.
Yeah.
So this is.
Yeah. All right, now we're going back in time.
Past revisions of. Oh, this is actually this is the galaxy map.
Yes.
Right? So in the galaxy map, instead of seeing derelict ships and trading stations, you actually see different solar systems, which we're probably going to change to be more scientifically accurate.
Right.
This would be a star cluster rather than a galaxy.
Yeah.
And then the whole shebang will probably end up being a galaxy instead of being the universe.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I do like the kind of the very polygonal web in this. That has a cool vibe to it.
I was going for kind of Star Trek Generations with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has that feel, which is cool.
The Stellarium.
Yeah, that there's kind of some geometric mapping to this 3D space, because we have a very, very 2D space. It would be cool if it was 3D, and you could zoom through it and stuff like that. But indie games, indie games and budgets and stuff. This is
more riffing on ideas for.
Right, this is Sean Colombo getting to you with a little bit of Hive here. This is a little cross promotion.
I don't know where that came from actually.
The Hex.
Yeah.
You were playing too many RTSs or turn-based strategy games actually.
Playing some Civ 5.
Yeah.
That's yeah. Oh, this is the very first concept I did for you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
This is back in the day when it was like we just had started the game. or no, we had done the GDC pass the way the game looks right now.
Yeah.
And I was just like, all right, let's play with shadows. Let's play with what a room might look like. And so, you created this thing, which is like, what the, and this is, yeah, what I wanted was definitely like shadow interplay and like, what the hell is this thing?
Yeah.
Like, it's clearly a thing. It looks like a giant fucking crab spider that's going to kill me, but it's really an engine part, but I don't know what it does.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted. Now, yeah, the only thing about this is that, of course, like, as you guys see with the current version of the game, I want this to be way more obscured and not be able to tell what's in it. Yeah. And then I also have a fear of putting things in the middle of the room that you'll have to steer around, or we'll have to incorporate into our kind of, because we have auto navigation with the drones and stuff like that. Yeah. But I don't know if that's a valid fear, because I do think it would be interesting to like scoot in behind this thing, you know, or if that played to some strategy, like you go back here and you put your Gatling gun this way and another one this way, or something like that. But for the scope of game, I don't know if we'll be able to do it.
And there's still ways around it. Like we've talked in the past about maybe the drones are actually like flying.
Oh,
they don't have treads.
Right.
And they can hover around a room, and then they can just go over things, and you can still get the cool shadows. Or we could, have things recessed into the floor.
Yeah.
So you still get, some cool
sense. I do like the idea of things recessed into the floor, because then that would also super motivate that little, that stupid thing I want to do with the drone light, where it bounces around and stuff like that.
I think that would be cool.
Yeah. We also want to eventually, just so that people know, I don't know if we'll get to it, but like we want to have crap floating through the air.
Yes.
Because some of the earlier concepts look very much like you were underwater in a Titanic, and Jill threw some of that stuff in there, and I was like, that's awesome, because you get these false positives, like these, like you get a little red rectangle. If you play the game, means shit. Like that means this drone is probably going to die. So you don't want to get to this state. But if like some piece of crud was floating through the air and the computer for a second thought it was an enemy and then like glitched out and said like whoops, it would just kind of give the player a quick heart attack, which would just be fun, because I'm a sadist.
So now we're progressing in time.
Oh, is this where we're going backwards? Oh, we're going forwards.
We're going forwards in time.
Right. So now we're trying to figure out how we're going to do these doors. And I love stuff like this D7, this D12 worked into the environment.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think with the current setup, like details like that just aren't even going to come through.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because it's so obscured. Yeah. This is such a clear picture of what's going on. Yeah. And that's another thing that's always up for debate, and I don't know if we'll ever solve it. Like, is this just a scientific? This is just a visualization, or is there actually some camera that you're looking through? Because as soon as we added like some of the static and stuff, it looks so much like a video feed. Right. Which makes no sense, but who cares? But I always pictured it as this is a visualization because the drone is scanning the room and you're looking at that process data.
Like 3D data from the room. Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is cool. Yeah.
Right.
Let's see.
More of that.
Those lines, ideas that we did.
Ideas with hard buttons here, which I love the idea of.
But didn't really fit.
But it doesn't really fit because I feel that everything... I've got this weird thing that this thing that you're looking at is your monitor. So like if you're playing the game on a laptop, you are in a physical space and like this is your monitor. So having physical buttons like this, well, I want them to be in the room with you like that. And so maybe we could have like a red like glare on the screen. Right. And then also like if you notice right now, and we have like 0 sound design in, but when radiation floods, there's this bell. It's like a physical bell that rings, like a school bell. Yeah. And so... that's weird because everything else is kind of digital, right? And I just feel that you're in this room and like something, when crap hits the fan, there might be a physical thing in there with you, and there's like a bell that goes off, I did
not recognize the bell. I like that.
Yeah. So when radiation floods, there's like a bell, like a school bell that like rings.
Your console is like, this is bad.
Yeah, because everything on the console is digital. It's like a digital watch. It's like, but that one with the radiation, that's more like you're in a firehouse or something like that.
I love it.
Yeah, playing around with stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, this is when we were messing with ideas of power on and power off.
Oh, right. So this is this and this, right?
Yeah.
So one thing that right now, if you guys notice, I don't know if any of you guys have watched the videos of the game or whatever, but we have that when you're out in the schematic view, you can see if a room is powered or not, but when you're in the game itself, you can't. And I kind of love that you need to use both views, and I love that they don't give you all the data you need. However, it is also nice when you're affecting things, and you can see that in the environment.
Yeah.
And so we were like, wouldn't it be cool if when you're going through a room, you can tell if it's powered or not. It's not powered like the lights are all on. It's powered like, okay, the subsystems like are functioning, and like their little floor LEDs or this monitor that you can see here is on.
Yeah.
And maybe flickering or something like that. And it really gives you that sense of, I am awakening this kind of dead giant of a ship that I'm in, and what's going on with it.
I was really inspired by the inspiration for this came from, I saw a picture of the International Space Station, and it was nighttime, and they'd shut all the lights off so they could sleep, but all the computers were still on.
Oh.
There was just banks of panels on floor, ceiling, everything. There was just all these tiny little LEDs, and I was like, oh, that looks so cool. And I would love to have something like that in the game.
Yes. Yeah. So we've got, clearly you need to sell a peripheral along with the game that has those buttons. Oh, yeah. So what's really funny is I actually bought,
bell on it. That'd be awesome.
So I bought a mechanical keyboard from the guys upstairs when they were moving out. And I was like, I bought it simply, and I haven't done it yet, but simply so that when I demoed the game, people could play on a mechanical keyboard. And to me, I used to play games on not only my dad's old IBM, but like my friend's dad had a Tandy, and like they had those buttons that just clicked,
Click,
Yeah, the solid clicks. And it totally reminds me of playing like Battle Chess or Carmen Sandiego or whatever the heck we were playing back then. And it just feels really cool. And so that's a part of the game that is cool.
Yeah.
And Matt's saying great sound things to be done. Yes, like we have not touched sound. I have a little meter on the bottom. Sound design is going to be really critical in this game because we're going to be really minimalist on the visuals just because you can't see so much. Yeah. And then imagine this, like what I want mics on the drones. So now this is kind of complicated. Like, I don't know. I'm not a genius audio guy, but it seems complicated that like 90% of the sounds are going to be already passed through a filter, right? They're going to come through a shitty mic, and then you're going to hear them. Right? And then you also hopefully have the ambient sound of your ship and like the bell that might go off or whatever that reminds you that you're sitting in front of a computer monitor. And then everything that you hear, and hopefully we can fuck with you, right? Like we can make sounds that might sound like the alien thing, or if you bring the drone up to the edge of a door, like you might be able to hear something, but you're like, is that an engine? Or is that like something moving?
Yeah.
It sounds regular, so it's probably an engine sound, but it could be something in there. And then you can do things like, I've thought about like, maybe certain aliens or enemies like make your monitor flicker, and you're like, or make the drone signal weak, and you're like, oh, it's nearby, but I don't know exactly where it is. And the same thing with audio cues, right? Like you could hear it going through the vents or something like that. Yeah,
I love it.
I'm really excited about that, and we have done like zero work on that so far. Yeah.
To come.
So we'll just get Matt.
Things to come.
We'll just get Matt to do it.
Yeah.
Because he's got time.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got. To texture ideas
patterns
for just
sets,
patterns that would be the basis, and we're just adding this in now. We should show. Is that in here?
No, but I can throw it in real quick.
Yeah.
Throw it over.
Yeah. Check it in.
Yeah.
So here's something that you don't think too much about. So there's a schematic that we've got here. There's a second view where you're looking at everything, and this is a map. And the problem is, and this becomes a UI. This becomes like a graphic design sort of thing, where it's like we have so many states for the room, even without having a lot of states. Like let's say the state for a room is like it's powered or it's not. You've explored it, like AKA scanned it or not, and then maybe it could flood with radiation. And so immediately you have, 2 states, and then those can all overlap on top of each other, right? And so that makes it that...
Yeah, go to the next slide to see even more.
Yeah, so this is even more rooms. I guess we could zoom in a little bit on this stuff.
I think it was even the next one beyond this, where I tried overlaying everything at once. There you
go. Yeah. So here we go. So let's take a quick look at this stuff. So you've got, here's a room, everything at once. So I think we decided that we were trying to fit everything within the interior of the room. Like this is unpowered. This was powered. And then we have so we have transporter signals. So sometimes you have a transporter and you can beam down to certain rooms, and the signal is strong in that room. So we decided rather than putting that as a symbol in the middle, which we originally done, I don't know. I was farting around and I was like, wait a minute, what if we put like a rectangle on the outside of it? Because we have gaps in between the rooms, and so that's what this blue highlight sort of is, and then in the corners, I think. And then we need the room number, and you need the drone number, and you need all the things within the room, and all that stuff. And this is, you can transport into it. It's been explored because it has a grid on it. It's not powered because it's gray. It's red lined because radiation is flooding into it. So this is like, this is where it's happening. Yeah. This is the party room.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can imagine, like, it just seems like such a simple problem. It's like, oh, we just need squares for rooms and things in them. And then all of a sudden you start to really appreciate people that make schematics.
Yeah, it's the kind of problem I like.
It's cool. It's a cool problem, but
it's
tricky.
Yeah.
It's definitely tricky.
It does get a little frustrating.
Oh, so this is the new, so if any of you guys have seen me play or have played the latest version of the game, the swap interface currently, when you pilot your drone up to a destroyed drone, you can swap upgrades with it, and this is a big part of the scavenging in the game. And right now, it is a crappy Unity UI where you drag things from one side to the other. So we were trying to think of how we could make a friendly-ish UI that could be driven by keyboard.
Yeah.
And this is what we kind of came up with.
It's first pass.
First pass.
Yeah.
So this is your drone on the left, and this is the other drone on the right, and it's got 3 slots each. And the idea is that there's a highlighted, there's a highlight state or there's a sort of selected state, and then a highlight state for basically your cursor, right? So you can see here that the area sensor and the empty slot, if you hit enter right now, or space according to this, these two would swap. So you can imagine you can go down to 3, and then you'd hit right, and you'd jump over to this column, and maybe go to 1, and then hit space, and it would swap those two.
Yeah.
And what I'm thinking is to make it even faster for all you supers out there. We could have these numbered like 1, 2, 3, and this could be numbered A, B, C, and you could hit 1A, enter. So 1 would select this, A would select this, then enter would swap them.
That's a good idea.
All right. And then I also think, to be even more crazy about it, a lot of times what I do is I have a drone that's just sort of empty, and I go up and I just want to grab everything, and so it could be that you could hit A, enter, and if there's an empty slot, it will just move it in.
Oh, yeah.
So you could be like A, enter, B, enter, C, enter, and maybe A, B, C, enter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I like all of these things.
yeah, so this is kind of like the Linux nerd in me that's always like, because as soon as you start doing commands, you're like with opening the doors, it used to be that we would type in like open door 1, and then it became open D1, and then it became O, and then it would complete to open D1, and now it's just D1.
Yeah.
And that just toggles them. So it's like, as you play a game that's command line interface, you want these things to be kind of better. Yeah.
Through old ideas, old versions.
I do love this because this reminds me of, I don't know if you guys used to play like Privateer and I don't even know if it was in Privateer or X-Wing or any of those games, but like I feel like they had things like this where they would have like because it was sexy to have like 3D rendered models and stuff like that, they would have that, but they would only have like one model, so like you would see this on maps and stuff like that, and that's what the vibe that it kind of gives me, which I dig. And then also, I'm very cognizant of the outlines of these things, because when you quickly want to identify, like right now in my mind, like squares equal derelict ships I can explore, and circle equals this, which I know is something I have to transport down to, and this thing is probably, is that a Stargate?
I don't remember.
I don't even know. But anyway, the point is that I can quickly look and be like, square, square, square. Those are the main things I'm going after because I don't have a transporter. And then eventually I can use this. But these, just visually those outlines really help. So I think we're still going to probably try to incorporate those. And this is an older versions of the final one.
Yellow. Blue.
Right. So you move that thing over, right?
Yeah, if you go
this is an experiment. We'll see if I can reopen it and if it'll still.
DCS will automatically.
It did, yay! So now.
Go back.
There we go.
Yay.
So this is brand new. If you guys have seen me play the game, it's basically I don't know, like there's nothing there.
Programmer art.
It's programmer art. It's just a square, and I put like a really crappy grid texture on there that gets stretched. And so this is us trying to, or this is Brennan trying to just use some normal maps and some textures to be like, oh hey, you know what? I'm driving along this thing, and it looks a little bit more interesting. What's up, sir? Just wrapping up our little stream. Gregor Ice, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, hi. I'll come back, but have fun.
So this is just real quick. This is just, instead of just being the plain floor that we have and everything, all of a sudden it looks like we're actually going through a derelict ship. And for hopefully not too much of a price to pay on that one. And we can vary this up and make ships have different feels to them and make
Different
them...
rooms on ships have
different
feels.
rooms have different feels, and then different ships. So it might be like, this is a military ship, and I can tell. Or it might be like, this is the engine room of a military ship,
Right.
and I can tell.
Right.
And I want that to go into your strategy. I want you to be like, hey, this is a military ship, so maybe I'll do a different build. Like when I'm going to bring down a... and this is less art and more design, but I want it to be like, I'm going to bring down an interface upgrade because military ships generally have ship defenses on them, and I can access those and blow away the bad guys. Whereas like if it was a different kind of ship, I might be like, there's not as many terminals on those and not many ship defenses, so I'm not going to bother bringing that upgrade down. Like when I choose my build, if you will, my